You're listening to the Nii Lamptey Show. My name's Joey, and I'm joined by Paul.
All right, mate.
And by Neil.
Hello.
And we're delighted to say by special guest Chris Stokes. How are you, Chris?
I'm good, thank you.
Fantastic. How are you finding the downtime at the minute, mate?
Very boring. Just stuck in the house, watching telly, playing with my son, and he's driving me up the bed, really.
Is it just the one kid?
Pardon?
Just one kid?
Yeah, just got one boy. 3 years old.
Oh wow, okay. That's the thing. That's the thing. I think most people are sort of struggling with, isn't it? Is what on earth do you do with house-born children at this sort of age, isn't it? I do not.
Literally.
Yeah, 3-year-olds don't have an attention. 3-year-olds don't have an attention span at the best of times.
No.
That's why you send them to nursery so other people can keep them entertained, and you have them for the fun bit at the end of the day when they're a bit more tired. But
you're not wrong.
It's not fun.
I mean, this would be brilliant if we put this out as an hour-long discussion about quarantine, but I think probably people are more interested to hear about your Coventry and sort of wider career, Chris. So I want to start probably where it's the most appropriate to start, which is the start. And first things first, for a lad from Frome, how did you end up joining Bolton?
I was playing for Bristol City at the time. And it was just one of them. It's sort of scouts come to games and you play around sort of different sort of teams. And a Bolton scout picked me up and said, "Do I fancy heading up there for sort of like I think I went out for a game and stuff, just to like have a little look at me." And then from there, it was all transferred done, and I was transferred at the age of 13. So it was a bit of a young age to get transferred, especially as a 13-year-old. It was a bit mad, and then you sort of move home all the way from Frome all the way up to Bolton. It was one of the things. It was a bit crazy, but it was one to get that sort of football opportunity. One you sort of jump at. So Bristol City at the time were a low-end sort of League One sort of side, and Bolton were high-flying sort of then Europa League sort of places, top 6 Premier League team. So I was never going to turn down the opportunity.
Where were you? Where were you first spotted?
Where was I first spotted? I was at the young age.
You said 7. Bristol City. Sorry, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, I was at Southampton before then. About when I was 6.
I was going to say, 7. I thought that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I was good on my sort of youth side at Southampton, and then transferred then to Bristol City. I can't remember, about 10 years old. I think I went up to Bristol City because it was sort of closer for my sort of parents and that sort of side to go to Bristol instead of going to Southampton.
Then, who goes up north with you? So this is always the most interesting thing for us, is we've got absolutely no concept of how any of this works. But presumably that's you going up on your own, isn't it? Yeah,
I literally changed schools, changed everything, moved into digs, and that was it. Yeah, your city world just completely changes. I was only 13 at the time. I was straight in living with when it moved in with a lady, just took me in. I lived with another lad who was a little bit older than me, who sort of did the same sort of thing. He moved from Poland, and he was about 17, 18 at the time. And yeah, we just lived together, and everything was just football from there on.
How do you cope? What do you do to cope?
I think because I was so young, it was just everything was moving so fast. I didn't really have time to think and cope. Really, it was all sort of 100 miles an hour. It was my dream to always be a footballer. And then, as I said, when you get that sort of opportunity even at a young age of 13, to go to such a big team of what Bolton was at the time, to go to a sort of top 6 Premier League team, it was the aspiration to do that, to play that sort of side of football was something I always wanted to do. So I sort of spoke to my family about it, and yeah, they were obviously worried about me moving so far away, because I said it's about a 5-hour car journey from where I live to Bolton. But my mum and dad have always been very supportive and always travelled up to Bolton as much as they could to visit me.
So who was that?
You reckon?
Oh, sorry, go on.
Sorry, would you? Obviously, you were saying earlier you've got a 3-year-old son.
Yeah.
In 10 years' time, if your son was given the same opportunity, would you? Obviously, by that point, your football career could have ended, and you'd be doing other things. You could be doing coaching, or would you advise him to do the same path you did, where you move away, or would you try and keep him maybe at a closer but lower league club? I think say he's been in football like I was from a young age all the way till 13, and it was his dream to, like it was for mine, to be a footballer, and I wouldn't want to stand in his way. And like I said, my parents obviously analysed the situation as well as I did, because it was probably been their decision more than mine for me to do it at that age. So yeah, I think if I could see the sense in it and see the logic in it of
it was going to be a progression in his career, then I wouldn't want to stand in his way and try and have as much as I could like my parents did for me.
Then who was at Bolton at the time?
In sort of manager-wise or player-wise?
A bit of both. I mean, for a start, how long were you there for?
It was, I was there from 19, so just over 5 years I was there.
Bloody hell, okay, right.
Yeah, so when I actually signed, I signed a 5-year contract, so it took me all the way then till 19, so it was a bit of security from that part. I then signed a big contract, especially at a young age. But yeah, the Sam Allardyce was in charge, and I think they were outside. They were trying to recruit young players, but the best young sort of players. I think it was a sort of a national sort of thing. I remember Chelsea were doing it. There was a few clubs doing it, like tapping up the sort of really young players and trying to bring them in really early, and then nurturing them into obviously football, trying to nurture them into sort of the way they sort of play, and then you sort of save a lot of money doing it that way, and it's has sort of fizzled out, but you don't really see much of it now where they move in so. But it's Bolton sort of had that sort of plan of doing it in their academy, bringing in the best young talent from here, there, everywhere.
What impact do you think?
How much interaction did you have with? Obviously, you signed as a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that Sam Allardyce didn't know who you were.
It's sort of the academy director who that's their sort of role, and that's their job to go about and find them sort of players, and he would be the one then. Who would then be talking to who has the money, the chairman or the sporting director, however. I imagine they would have had one at that time, and so I met Sam Allardyce when I went up and that sort of side, but he wouldn't have really got involved in that until he's sort of. I think the managers wouldn't really get involved in them sort of players until they're on the brink of the first team. You sort of go and train with them, and so that's when you sort of have more dialogue with a first team manager. Probably about 15, 16 years old when they start picking up your name and you're playing reserve games and that sort of side, and they start taking a bit more of an interest.
So when did you actually feel like you were a sort of professional footballer? Obviously,
I would say it's sort of 16 when you finish school, when you're going in. Literally, that is your job of your day-to-day job is every day as being a footballer. So that's probably when it hit home that I do feel like now I'm a footballer, not just being here, there, in and out. Because I think it's 16 where a lot of people do drop out of the game, because I said it sort of then changes from you're training 2 times a week and playing on the weekend and that sort of side, but then sort of 16 years old it goes like a sort of scholarship, first year pro, and then you sort of then feel like more of a professional footballer.
And then ultimately, so the move was from Bolton to Forest Green. So what happened there? Talk to me about what that process looked like.
Yeah, I got released at 19 years old, and it was just we had about 2-3 managers come in at the time. Went from Allardyce to Megson. Megson was really keen on me as well, like Allardyce was, and then we had Owen Coyle, and he sort of just went down a different path. He wanted to go for a different sort of player, and I thought, right, fine, I'm not going to waste my time here because I'm 19 years old, I want to play. So I left, and then it was a lot harder than what I thought. It was, you're out into the blue and you sort of trying to swim for yourself, and you think, well, crikey, this is tougher than what I thought. I walked straight into a team, say Championship, League One, no problem. I didn't even know what I didn't even know what the conference was. I didn't even know what teams were in the conference or anything. So it was a big open eye for me, and it took until November for me to finally accept it that I was going to have to sign for a team in the conference. And I just sort of then knuckled down and tried to rebuild my career again. Why
wasn't there? I mean, bearing in mind that you were at like a decent Premier League club.
Yeah.
Why wasn't there an easier transition to a bigger club?
I had a loan spell at Crewe when at Bolton. I only played a couple of games and I unfortunately got injured, so that probably didn't help me towards the back end of when I did leave Bolton. So I was very inexperienced, so I didn't really have any games on my belt.
Right.
So I was approaching 20 years old and I'd literally played no games. So teams are looking at that sort of side. They had players from their own sort of academy, 19, 20 years old, that have played lots of, like, look at it now in, say, Coventry's team, young players that come through, say 20 years old, they've played nearly 100 games. So I had nothing on my CV, nothing at all, and people were looking at it thinking, can he do it, can he not, and they want to take you on trial and this sort of part, and offer you really less money. And at 19, 20, I was already living away from home, so I didn't have that sort of home base of where I could go live at home and then travel into clubs and that sort of stuff. I was on my own like a man at 20 years old, so it was then sort of, I wanted a big contract at such a young age when it just wasn't there for me, so I sort of accepted it, and I moved back home into my parents' house. Forest Green's not too far away, and so I said that's what I had to do. And yeah, it was one of them things. Really. It was. I don't know how it happened, but yeah.
So you end up playing well over 100 games for Forest Green. Let's say, for argument's sake, sort of halfway through that, how do you see your career panning out, sort of, when you were right in the thick of it at Forest Green?
Yeah, I thought when I signed there, it was the intention of always playing to the end of the season, then getting back out and getting back into higher up the Football League. I thought it would be that simple, but it wasn't. It was, I signed there, and I actually didn't quite enjoy it. I was playing games. It said it. 19 years old, straight into a first team environment, playing games. You sort of thought I'd build my career, see how it goes, and it took a lot longer than what I thought it did, because I stuck around for, crikey, nearly 4 years. I think 4 or 5 seasons I was there. It was. I don't think it'd be that long, and thankfully Coventry come around it a few years later, and I managed to get my career going again.
And
how do you keep yourself? How do you? Obviously, your dream was to be a Premiership footballer, and you were in the Premier League, and then suddenly you're finding yourself in non-league, and as you say, you sort of anticipated that you would shine in non-league, and the move to the Football League would come very quickly, and obviously it took you. I mean, you were called into the England C squad, which must have been a bit of a fill. At least then your people are recognising you. You're obviously doing a good job, but how do you keep Did you ever think, this isn't for me, maybe I should be looking to do something else? Or were you always, I can do this, my quality will give me the chance? Yeah,
fortunately I was at a good just when I signed there, it was taken over by Dale, that I don't even know about Forest Green. He's highly invested into the football club. So I was fortunate I went on to a good contract. So I wasn't on a low wage for a non-league, like a lot of them conference sides. Some of them are part-time, some of them don't pay very well. So fortunately I was on good money for that sort of level. So I was always had that sort of financial behind me anyway. So I wasn't really thinking I need to go into another job. Some people in the conference have 2 jobs and work part-time and play football part-time. So fortunately I was at a club where I could concentrate fully on my football, and I was on reasonable money. So I never really thought of going into something else, because I always had that security that if I stayed in non-league for another 10, 15 years, I'd like to then go into work afterwards, like I'm planning to anyway. But yeah, I'd never really had that thought of going into something else. Always stuck at it, and hopefully then my chance would have come where I got the opportunity to go somewhere high up in the Football League, and it eventually did happen.
So next up then was when you joined Coventry. So the first thing is what other offers did you have on the table when Coventry came up?
Yeah, so I had a little fallout with the manager at Forest Green. He just took over, and we didn't seem eye to eye, and he said, look, right, you're going to explore your options. And I went up to Yeovil, had a little look around, and did really well down there, and they offered me something, but it was a lot less than what I was even on at Forest Green, and I was never going to do that. I had another year and a half of my contract at Forest Green, so I was never really going to accept anything, especially a lot lesser than what I was on. I was 24 years old, 23, 20, something like that at the time. So I was never going to accept something, even to step into the Football League. I was not going to take nearly half my wages to do that. But yeah, and then Coventry come around, because Dave Hockaday, who was my manager at Forest Green, I think he newly went into the 23s setup, or I can't remember what job he first went into. I think it was the 23s. That he recommended at the time to Stephen Presley, and said, look, I think because Coventry were looking for a left back, he said, look, have a look at Chris. He obviously knew a lot about me, and then I come up for a couple of games, and yeah, it went from there.
So what sort of state did you find the club in when you joined?
I'm not too. Well, it was one that was right at the bottom, because it was when I think I joined, we were literally one place outside the relegation fight, and I was thinking, growing up as a kid, you know what Coventry City, everyone who knows football knows what Coventry City are and what a massive club they are. So when I joined, I was surprised at thinking, why is this team struggling? There has to be something going on somewhere. And then the more I got into it, you couldn't really put your finger on why it was that season. It was struggling, so I wasn't really part of it. I think it was at the Northampton season I joined, where the club just went back to playing at Rico. So I don't know if that had an effect that season. I'm not too sure.
So the reason I asked that question specifically is you alluded to it yourself there. There would have been a period sort of all the way through the 90s where Coventry City would have been synonymous with being in the Premier League but getting by the skin of their teeth. Then in the 2000s, that shifted very specifically to being one of the absolute archetype basket case clubs. But you know what I mean? Is that, like you say, there's all of the stuff going on behind the scenes with the ownership and the fallout with the fans and the stadium moves and all that sort of stuff. I wonder, going from what seems like a sort of, at the very least, a very well-run club at Forest Green, I wonder whether there's a big mad culture shock then of joining and then you've already been at Bolton, I suppose, which makes a big difference.
Yeah.
But going from Bolton to Forest Green to Cov. Do you get a sense when you join Cov that there are all sorts of problems, or is it just a football club that you join?
I think as a player, you don't read too much into it because you're there to do a job as a player. Your role and responsibility is to go on the pitch and perform. You're not there to deal with was it Sisu, like what, all that sort of side of it. You tend to just get knuckled. Me personally, that was how I always dealt with it when I've gone into football clubs. So this has not just been Coventry that I've gone into that has had issues. It's always been my sort of mindset to, you have a little look at it, does everything seem all right? You speak to people that you sort of know, your agent will have more influence than that, who would find out you're going to a secure job, for example. And it was, once it all seemed all right, it seemed okay. And then I met people that signed off the contracts, and I was there to do a job as a footballer, not to get involved in all the political side. And I didn't really feel much of it at the first time I was there, especially in the first season I was there. I didn't really get involved too much all that side of it, but I didn't really notice it at all.
And you would have been signed by Stephen Pressley?
Yeah.
What did you make of Pressley?
So literally I signed on the Friday. So I met the team. I think I met the team on the Saturday morning. Yeah, so I trained with them, but only as like a trainee coming in there, a couple of days here, there. Played a couple of games, and then I literally signed on. I was training at Forest Green on the Friday. Did a lot of running and that sort of side of it. People don't really know this as a Coventry fans probably don't really know this. I did a lot of training, did extra running, that sort of side, and then I got a phone call on the Friday evening saying it's going to be done. Can you sign the paperwork? And then I drove up to Coventry, signed the paperwork late Friday evening, stayed in a hotel, and then I had to drive to Sheffield the next day. And it was all manic, go, and didn't really have time to think about it, straight into the game the next day, playing a game. So it was a bit manic. And thankfully, I got through 70 minutes, and everywhere my body cramped because I was thinking, oh my God, I didn't even expect I was going to be playing a game the next day, let alone playing against them in Sheffield United. So I was thinking, what is going on here?
Do you know
how quickly did you played before that? Oh, we're all in there.
No, go on, Neil.
So if you say you managed to get like 70 minutes in, what was the game?
Yeah.
How many games or weeks had it been since you'd actually played the first team game before that?
I think it'd been probably. I played a couple of reserve, but first team games probably about 6-7 weeks, I think.
Wow, and you're straight in there. You must. Oh, that's
yeah,
big.
And then straight in there, Sheffield United away, and it was. I think we were 2-0 up, and I was thinking, oh, happy days, this is great.
Easy.
Then we drew 2-2, and it was like, oh my God. And then the next day, Presley went and got sacked, and I was like, right, what? I've been a manager one day, great, now as a new manager. I was only on loan. I was thinking, crikey, I'm off to Forest Green. I go, fantastic, what a great time this be. I played one game, I'm off already.
Yeah, it was a loan at first, wasn't it, of course?
Yeah, I signed literally a brief loan to the end of the season.
During that first game, was there anyone who really stood out for you? Like one of your in that team you'd have had Fleck.
Yeah, Dominic Samuel scored. He scored 2 that day. So I was
yeah.
So for him, I was like thinking, crikey, he seems a good player. And they said you got Flecky, or I've always, probably not just in that game, but over the time I was there, he probably was the best player at the club I probably played with. And then you've got, who else was in that sort of side? I think Matthew Pennington was in that team who done well. I'm trying to think now.
The problem with Cov is you get through so many players. It's really hard to keep it like. Was Sheffield there?
Grant Ward was good. Grant Ward said he coming to
of course, yeah.
He came from
Grant Ward done really well.
Spurs.
Pardon?
Did he come from Spurs?
He come from Spurs. Yeah.
Then went to
Ipswich and had a really good time at Ipswich. Yeah.
I think he come in 2 weeks before I signed, and I was living in the same sort of hotel with him, so I got him really well. And he think he done well there as well. And off the top of my head, them sort of 4 or 5 players are the ones that really shone out for me.
So you end up signing permanently.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I was going to say. Was that good? Yeah, I guess that's this is pretty good. But like you say, is that I guess with a bit of uncertainty about Pressley going. So who is it that offers you a contract then? Is Mowbray in at that point, or
it was So then I think Dave Hockaday and was it Neil, who was Presley's assistant, took the next game against Milton Keynes. I think I scored that game and we won.
You did, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. So we won 2-1, and then we played Big Barnsley away on the Tuesday, and Mowbray was then. I think he had the job, but he didn't. He was at the game, but it wasn't announced he was getting the job. I think I did all right that game, and then he sort of spoke to me and said, "Look, we're going to continue," because it was only literally a month loan at the time. It's on only a month loan, and he was like, "Right, yeah, we'll take this loan to the end of the season. I think you've done well, and I want to see a bit more of you. We'll take it to the season and see how it goes." And I was obviously delighted even with that at the time. I was to go from a conference team to a League One team like Coventry. I was absolutely delighted and over the moon to try and carry on as much as I could.
So what was Mowbray like as a bloke and as a manager?
Stern, but very to the point of, I said I was explaining briefly before, he sort of, with me personally, would explain to me every sort of game that, right, Chris, this is what I want you to do. This is who you're marking. This is what I want you to set this sort of plays, or when we get the ball, this is how I want you to pass to, this is how I want you to play. And he sort of nullified my game, simplified it really simply, and I really enjoyed playing for him because it was every sort of role, every sort of game, it was a different sort of role that I had to sort of fulfill, and always felt I did that for him. And I think every game I played every game when I was fit. I played every game for him, so I must have done all right for him in the end.
Where does he rank in terms of?
That must have been a fun. Sorry, go on.
Sorry.
Yeah, go on. Where does he rank in terms of managers that you've had?
I would say for me he's the best, just because I probably played my best football under him, and for a player to, when you get, he sort of got the best out of me. He was very good at always he never really praised me, and he never really did anything like that. He would always just very simplify it, like, Chris, this is your game, go out and do it for me, done, job done, next one, boom, move on. And I just always felt I was like trying to step up and press him, and then the following season we got better and better players, and it was for me to, I don't know, it just felt like the club was going on a massive upwards curve, and I was really delighted to be part of it, and I felt really happy at the club in that sort of stage of my career.
That must have been a fun team to play with. I mean, to play with John Fleck, Armstrong, Murphy.
Yeah, it was.
It must have been. At times, you must have been stood on the pitch going, "This is actually enjoyable to be just watched as someone who's watching it, as let alone playing in it."
In the pre-season, I don't think we actually scored a goal. So,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I'm not thinking in that pre-season. I think I got on really well with Jordan Willis and all them sort of players with it. And it was, I think we've spoken about it before. I think Armstrong signed this the weekend before the season, and we were thinking, crikey, we just signed an 18-year-old striker. We're not going to score any goals. What the hell is going on? We didn't score any goals in pre-season, and so no one really going to that season. I don't think the players, or I don't think even you lot as a supporter probably would have thought the same of this is going to be a good season, because what the season was before.
We were worried. We were very
worried. I think us players were the same. We was thinking, where's this going to go? And then, you get the first game of the season, Wigan at home, Armstrong scores 2, and you're thinking, right, here we go.
Yeah.
The next one, Millwall 4-0, and you're thinking, crikey, we have got a good side there.
What was that formation on the first game of the season? Because to us it looked like 4 up front.
Question,
what was going on there?
We played 4-2-3-1.
So it's 3-1, okay. Who was up front? Was it Lemira's up front?
No, Lemira's had been the 10. Armstrong had been up front with, I don't think I think Jim was on the left.
Yeah. Madders was in there, wasn't he?
Madders would have been off the right. I think Madders played off the side for Mowbray quite a bit.
What was Jim O'Brien like?
I got on really well. Jim was very stern, very aggressive sort of type of player, but Jim played just in front of me, and always had a good relationship with Jim. He was sort of a player like myself who would give everything he can for the cause and give everything, always fight and get up, do his battle and do his job and to the best he could. And I had a lot of respect for Jim.
we talked a lot on here. So our kind of general kind of podcast is just, you know, after a game, we'll talk about that game and then we'll have a look forward at the game in front. And you have kind of regular topics of conversation, blah, 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 blah. Around about that time for us, I think we felt like Jim O'Brien was a really, really integral cog in that team. And actually, he was one of the big things as he dropped out of that team more and more for whatever reason. That seemed to really, really upset the balance of that team. Is that something that you felt, or is that just some bullshit that we talk about?
A little bit. Only thing I would say about that is Mowbray wanted to go. He went from like a solid foundation at the back to I wanted youth and vibrance up front. So it was. He always wanted to emphasise it with like the solid base, and then have your sort of let them do what they want up there, but get the ball to them as quick as we can, and we just play up there. So it was like Jacob, Madison, Ramirez, Kent, Armstrong. It was like get them young boys up there. They obviously got loads of ability, so let them just go and cause absolute havoc, and we're lock it up behind them. And that was our sort of emphasis really of how we played. And it for the first half of the season, it was an absolute joy to be played in, and that thing was, as we can say, it was probably a joy to watch as well.
What impact did Joe Cole have?
I see that sort of time when Joe came in, we started struggling. So when Joe, it was one, but not as lot aside. Joe sort of helped. He was the young sort of. We had a lot of young players up front who started then. The game sort of dwindling off, and it was Joe had been around the block for years and years. So I think that a lot of them young forward players would talk very highly of Joe Cole, because he would have been the one sort of player who'd been talking a lot to them, trying to help them and guide them in that sort of way. And Joe was very good, like off the sort of field. He was probably the main sort of one of that group who come in, and the older sort of pros who took a lot of time and a lot of effort to talk to the young boys and try and help them as much as he could, especially on the field as well. He said a lot about him, and he was a hell of a good player.
What's it
how
like?
Old was how old was he when he walked? There must have, you signed for, you say you sort of had your career up to that point, and you'd have been 11 when he scored that goal against Sweden.
Yeah, I would have been dancing around somewhere.
Yeah, so you'd have been like, because Coventry have got an affinity for Joe Cole, because when he was 17, he tore our youth team apart in the Youth Cup final about 97, 98.
Okay.
And so Cov fans have known about him since he was a young kid, because and that team had Callum Davenport, McSheffrey, Chris Kirkland. It was, a lot of those players went on to play professional football at different levels. Yeah. But everyone knew Joe Cole. So Cov fans have always sort of followed. And then, obviously on Twitter, it was like, oh, we've announced Joe Cole. And all the Cov fans were like, you what? It's like that.
Yeah, it was the same in the change room. That I think it sort of got rumoured around. We sort of knew before it got announced. It was when sort of people started talking about it, it was like, what, really? Like the actual Joe Cole? It was like, yeah. But it didn't really, because we were doing so well. Then sort of, when you like at a club like Coventry, you do then sort of for a top end sort of. We were like near the top. Sometimes most season we're near the top end. So it was. You do expect good players then to probably then come in. You think you probably find if Coventry got promoted next season, you've got into the Championship. A lot of good players will be looking at Coventry and thinking, right, that's the club we wanted to go to, and then hopefully the big names will be starting to come back to a team like Coventry.
Talking to Joe Cole, it would be nice to talk a little bit about one of our favourite games of the last 10 years or so, which would have been the dismantling of, I know a team that you ended up playing for, but Bury at home, who we beat 6-0. I think Joe Cole made 4 of those goals, including one for you, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
What was that a good fun game to play in? Because they look like the sort of team that you'd like to play every week.
Yeah, it was. I don't think where that result come from, because our form. It dropped
right off, hadn't it? Yeah.
I think it had been like 4 defeats in a row, and it was like, crikey, what is happening here? Because we were doing so well, and it was even us as players couldn't put our finger on where have we gone wrong here, because we had that start of the season fly in, and it comes to sort of January. And I don't know if we do speak about it still now with players that I played that season with, and we put our finger on it. Was it the recruitment? Was it different pieces? Was it some injuries we had? And I think then 2 massive factors, probably then 2 sort of things: injuries and the recruitment was not where it should have been. Because there's no reason why we shouldn't have got promoted. But going back to that Bury game, it was to win 6-0 is always nice, and So Joe Cole put on a plate for me, and I think he put on a plate for 4 other people as well. So yeah, it was a hell of a game, and one of the games that's what you play football for, to be part of games like that.
It was beautiful to watch, and this is probably quite a horrible thing to say, but it was all made all the better because we'd had Reece Brown on loan for us, and he was awful and largely gave the impression that he never wanted to be there. And then to see a player like that have such a bad game against you when you come up against him, it was just beautiful. The whole thing of it was just absolute joyous. It was an absolute day out.
So you're saying that obviously you sort of you could feel the season edging away from you.
Yeah.
How do you sit down as one of the worst things that was said that week, that season, was Sam Ricketts came out and went, "Oh, we'd have taken this at the start of the season when we were 6th and we hadn't won. Well, our form had completely dropped off." And as a Col fan, you were like, "Yeah, but when we were top, when we destroyed Gillingham to go top with
I remember that,
awesome performance.
Yeah.
You weren't then thinking, oh, we won't win for 10 games. You were thinking, no, this is our season. So did Mowbray sit you down as a squad? Do you sit down as players? Do you sort of... And I suppose sort of a similar thing happened the season after when obviously we got relegated. Mm-hmm. Do you get together as a group and say, how are we going to solve this? Or is it just a case of the manager comes in, you sort of hope for guidance from him? Or... How do you cope with that?
You get bits of both. You have your sort of analytical meetings where you sit down as a group and you go through games and that sort of side. And then I don't think it was until we probably played Walsall and Burton, who were 2 teams in around us when we were right at the top of the table. I think that was towards November sort of time, off the top of my head, where we started probably really thinking, right, we can give this a right go. We've got a right chance here of getting promoted. And then when it started filtering off, I said we got a lot of experienced players in the team then, and it was they sort of in the changing room were the ones that the biggest voice and biggest ones who were talking about it. But then you're sort of showing the ones that were the youth and vibrant ones that were lighting up the season sort of shied away a bit, and you didn't really see that towards the back end of them as much as you did in the first half, which I don't know if was it taken away from them by the recruitment sort of side, because I always thought when it comes to January we should have gone again and signed that sort of side of player, but I think Mowbray wanted the more experienced sort of side of player, and it fortunately it just didn't work out.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was just thinking, because you mentioned what Sam Ricketts said, and I think one of the specifics that really frustrated me was he said that we'd overachieved by sort of January, and then there's also, you combine that with the photo of one of the teams that we had playing, and you look through each of those individual players, and you've got all of these absolute starlets, and you've got Joe Cole, and you've got that really solid defence, you've got Jack Stevens in there who came in, and you sort of look at it and you think, are you absolutely sure we overachieved here? Because it felt to me, as fans, we were like, hang on, this looks like a good team to me.
Yeah, I think it's easier in hindsight now where you do look at that team, you think, crikey, what a team we did have. But we did feel at the start of the season, I think, especially in sort of October sort of times when we were tearing teams apart, you felt it as a team, as a group, that we have got some very good talented footballers in this group, and we're going to have a good season. And then it didn't. It sort of hit home, sort of February sort of time, where this has gone wrong. This has definitely gone wrong, and it was always then an uphill task of trying to resurrect it and get it back on a upward curve, and it just never really got going. We had like the Bury result where you think that would spark it again, and it didn't, and then it was very disappointing, because you've had that. You've lit the season apart. You've got everyone all excited, us as players, everyone as a group, everyone as fans. Everyone's on that board of thinking, right, here we go, we're getting it going again. And then no, it was shot down straight away. And it's sort of February time. It just sort of died off. And even then, though, it was still a chance. Yeah. At the back, I got injured sort of the back end, but there was always, could we get into the playoffs? Could we get it? Could we? But I think even then, if we had snuck in the playoffs, I don't think it would have happened, because it was just not the same team as it was at the start, where it was off the. It was not. Was it right off the cuff? But going forward, it was completely get it up there and just let the magic happen. And it said it once you sort of had, then your striker become Fortuné and Henderson and that sort of drive. not to be disrespectful.
No. We know exactly what you. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's the
not
gift of
them sort of players, but it wasn't what we were.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, basically, we got Stephen Hunt out of retirement, didn't we? I mean,
it was.
And Peter Ramage from India. It was, as you said, and we got that Swedish lad who was
Martin Lorentzen. I think we just needed 2 or 3. I don't think we needed the whole lot. I think if we just signed 2 or 3 of them, just to help the change room, just to on them tough times where you do have a voice, because we had Sam and we had Ben Turner, and they were brilliant. I don't think we needed more than what we had. But I think if we signed just 1 or 2, and then just got another bunch of the youth we had up front. I know they're hard to find. Yeah, we got lucky. We might have got fortunate to bring in Jacob Murphy, Ryan Kent, and all them sort of side. You never know how they're going to go. But if we'd gone about it that way and signed a couple more of them and kept that sort of the same style of play and not sort of changed it, because I think that was a big detrimental thing. Our style of play changed.
I'm really glad you've said it. It felt like we hit January and then the squad bloated, and then every week there would be 1 or 2 players in there, I don't mean to be rude to individuals, where you'd look at the team selection and just think, but we know where this is going to break down, because we were playing a certain way, and now there's like an element of it that it doesn't click all together. And it's not those players' fault. But there was a point, and I think Gillingham was probably the high point of it, where teams didn't know what to do. Because if you released the ball early, you'd got at least 3 players with the pace up front that wherever the ball landed, they were dead, and that we were stretching teams so heavily. And you could argue, I mean, Jim O'Brien sort of still worked really, really well within that system. But then to put in much slower players in there, it just meant that they could narrow that game down a little bit more and then just have that extra chance of stopping us. And it seemed to us like it was so crazy to not keep pursuing that route.
Yeah, that is, you've put the nail on the head. That's exactly what it is. It's crazy as players as well. When that season finished, we were thinking, why have we done? What happened there? Like, why did we? I don't know. And the years gone by, I said to you when I was talking to you the other day, this is what frustrates me the most probably in my whole career, that season, where I still think about, I still talk to players, I speak to Jordan Willis on a daily basis and Ryan Haynes and them sort of players who were part of that sort of group, and you think what could have been, because we should have got promoted, and then we always talk about, and I think that's what I've narrowed it down to. It was probably we changed our style of play and the recruitment wasn't right in that January sort of transfer window.
So what do you do? Because obviously then, as you say, a lot of that team, there were obviously Madders went in the January to Norwich, came back on loan. You had the older players we just talked about who they were short-term solutions, whether or not they solved any problems. You obviously had Fleck came to the end of his contract in that summer. All the young lads who were on loan went. And you get to that, you must have been a feeling of, we had one shot at this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That team's gone.
Yeah, that's what was the most disappointing thing, because we sort of felt it from like March. It was like, we've missed the opportunity. I said also October sort of time, we felt it. We thought we're going to go here. We felt as a group, we said go. And then to get that disappointment where it's not happened, and then like you said, you sort of then realise this group's not going to be the same again next season. This is going to be a totally new group. And I was injured, so I sort of seen it sort of happening and changing, and I looked at the team and I thought, uh-oh. And it was a big uh-oh. It didn't start right, and then Mowbray lost his job after 10 games, and that season was looking at it from I was obviously looking at it from an outlet sort of point of view as well, because I wasn't part of it on the pitch, and it was tough, because I was just itching to get back in and try and help it, but I was looking at it thinking it's only going to go one way, because it never started right. And it was the season before where I was worried that it might not start right, but it started right straight away. It kicked into gear. So that first game of the season, it was boom, right, this is us. And then sort of the first 5 games of that season when we got relegated, it was like, uh-oh. And after 10 games, you sort of know where you're sort of going to be in the table. That's what everyone sort of says. After 10 games, you sort of realise and said we will fight right down the bottom, and it was...
The managers...
panicked, yeah.
The managers change. I mean, obviously, you said you spoke quite highly of Mowbray, but you said he wasn't really the sort of guy who gave around praise anyway.
Yeah.
But do managers go for a change when they're going... Because from an outsider's point of view, one of my issues with Mowbray is he loved to change the team. And the season we're doing really well, you never knew what the team was going to be from one game to the other, but you sort of trust him a little bit because he's obviously managed in the Prem and he's done a good job at Blackburn since he's left us. And then you, as you say, you got into that summer and you were like, okay, we're a year on from last one. This is a completely different team, and you see that the season isn't starting right. But did Mowbray change? I know you're saying you were injured, so you probably weren't as involved as others. But do managers change? Do they start just changing odd things, or do they? Can you see I suppose what I'm asking is, can you see a manager's going to get sacked? And how do you then react to that when you know that someone you obviously like and respect is clearly finding it difficult to save their job?
Yeah, as you said, Mowbray was one who he always tinkered with his team, but his changes were mostly the attacking sort of side. He ones he tinkered with because he always wanted fresh legs, fresh emphasis, and in sort of a game he'd always pinpoint where I'm going to exploit different areas. Is the left back slow, as the one side centre half slow or the other, and that was why he's always changed his sort of forward players. If you looked at it, probably his defensive sort of side always stayed the same. Flecky was always in the team. I was always in the team. We struggled for a right back that season. Right back changed quite a lot. I think Sam played there most of the season, but they went to centre half. But yeah, sort of his centre side was nailed down, but his attacking team has changed. And then following season, he was changing here, there, and everywhere. And I think he never really settled down from pre-season to the season what his 11 was, and then he was constantly making changes. Even in training, I was seeing it happen, and we sort of felt it as a group. We were thinking he didn't know his best 11, we didn't know our best 11. We were going out into games, and it just wasn't working. And you could feel the panic because you do. I've been involved with a lot of managers have lost their jobs, and you do feel he's going to go soon. He's going to go because it is a pressure job, and when if you haven't won a game in 10 games, you're very lucky to keep your job. That unless you've done really well a previous season, but probably with how well Mowbray did in that previous season, he probably got more games than a lot of managers would have done at that start. Some managers might have lost their jobs after 5 or 6 games, and so after 10 games, I think he more walked than got. I think it's a mutual sort of thing where I think he knew I've taken this group as I can't take this group where I want it to go, and he sort of left.
How did it make you feel when he walked?
Disappointed because I felt like, not sort of like let him down, but I wanted to be there to be part of. I really got a lot of respect for him. I said he was probably the best manager I played under. So for me, it was disappointing because I loved every minute playing for him. So then to think, well, I'm not going to get that chance again. It's not nice. And I said if I had been part of it, I feel like I could have helped his cause, have helped his case to stay on, but said I was out of it, and it was to look at it thinking I was itching to get back in, but I was never going to have that chance to get back into that sort of stage because I wasn't going to be fit for a few more months, and yeah, it was disappointing.
Me and Paul, I can't even remember how Neil felt, but me and Paul specifically, we were really pissed off with him walking. Because from memory, is that the big thing was, I think, so he'd sold Vincelo, who we adored. I mean, me especially. I just think it's very strange in League One. You'd imagine that there are all sorts of defensive cloggers in midfield that would be able to do that job, but there actually aren't. He was a cut above as far as we were concerned, and really, when he joined, he seemed to be another player that really glued everything together. I mean, him and Fleck in central midfield is an absolute Rolls Royce.
I forgot about Romain now. I've not really... I should have mentioned Romain because him and Flecky complemented each other so well. He was part of that defensive clog, as I said, who was reliable and you knew what you're going to get. Boom, boom, and him and Flecky worked like an absolute treat. And then I think
we lost him, and he wanted to move to 3 at the back, didn't he? And I think
he was. Yeah,
it felt like basically he tried to do that transition. Then after 10 games, it didn't work, and he walked, and we were a bit like, this is your mess. You don't get to walk away from
You're right.
This.
He sort of, I don't know if I can say, he sort of left us in the shit, and we felt that as a group, it had been mentioned as players that it was like, we're left in the mess here, and it's cheers, like thanks. What's going to happen now? Because when you've got a manager of like Tony Rooney's stature, you think you're fortunate to have someone like him, and then you're thinking, right, who's going to come in? Because we're bottom near the back where when I joined, we're a bottom half League One team, and it's thinking, right, where are we going to go from here? And then it never. That season, I was thinking, right, who's going to get the job? And you're thinking, hopefully it's someone of Mowbray's stature, and it never went like it
really did not. It really did not.
It really didn't go that way, did it?
As a fan who's, I mean, obviously we've watched football all of our lives, and I've always thought it must be quite difficult being, even yourself as a left back, or you played left side of the centre back. How difficult is it to just, because I think we had it on the Russell Slade a bit later on the season when we played 4-4-2 on the Saturday. Then we went to Bury away, and he played 3-5-2, and he moved like the left centre back to the right hand side, and you could just see that the defence were just. They'd been playing a system, and they were used to having. I think Jordan Turnbull was on the left-hand side, so he must have been used to having either yourself or Ryan Hayes outside him. And then suddenly he was the left-hand side of a three, so his positional sense is completely different now. His left wing-back is, instead of being alongside him, is 30 yards further forward. How easy is it, that transition? Or is it just I'm a footballer, I can play, so whatever system you throw at me, I'll get used to it? Or is it more nuanced than that?
No, I think I can speak of this quite freshly, because what's happened with me at Stevenage this season, when I joined the first half of the season when I was part of Stevenage, is probably exactly the same as what the season was at Coventry that year, even though I wasn't playing. And so when I was at Stevenage this season, the manager left after, I think it was 10 games. He left, and then we got another manager come in. He played a different system. Then go to I think it was 4-4-2, and then he said, I'm going to play this, and then he played something else, and you're constantly changing, and we sort of then got going again, playing this formation, and another manager come in, right, we're going to play a diamond, then we got beat 5-0, and it was like, right, can we just play one formation, please, and get narrowed down of what we're actually going to play, because once you, like, when it was Mowbray's season, it was 4-2-3-1, this is what we play, especially that first half of the season, this is what we're playing. Everyone knew the roles, especially me personally. He would tell me every game on a sort of Thursday, Friday, this is who you're playing against. This is how we're going to beat them. This is how we're going to... we always had a game plan of going into every game. This is how we looked at their team, and this is how we're going to win. It was just worked down to a treat. And then, as I said, it's when you change formation, that sort of side, and you're playing against different players in different sort of roles, it's uncomfortable because you're not working it every day in the training ground. You're not used to it, and it is a hard thing to do, but it's one of them things in football. Sometimes it happens where you do have to change formation sometimes in the game, but when you're constantly changing formation week in, week out, it is very difficult.
So thinking about the relegation season, I want to break this up into two bits. So firstly there's the kind of non-Wembley stuff. Then I want us to finish on a high and talk about Wembley, and then talk about the second Wembley visit and obviously that stuff like that. Now I don't want to dwell for ages on the relegation season, but what are your main, when you think about that season, what are the main things that you think about? What do you remember from that season?
One of them in checker trays, that's about it.
But the experience...
I got back fit, I think Bradford was my first game. My little boy was born, I think it was supposed to have been 3 days before, and then I was just getting back fit, and Mark Robins said, look, right, you're going in. I was like, right, crikey, I've not played at all, I think I played 2 or 3, and Mark Robins was newly got the job, and he said, I want to put you in. And I was straight back at it, and my fitness wasn't where it should have been, but I was never one to shy away from playing. That's the player I am. If I'm fit enough to put on the shirt, I'm putting on the shirt and I'm playing. I struggled that season fitness wise. I struggled, and I didn't come back the player that I sort of left, and that was very disappointing on my half, because I was always then fighting about to get myself back fit, where I was the player I sort of left previously before I got injured.
I've got a lot of respect for... Sorry, I really got a lot of respect for you saying that, because as I said, we sort of had a slight interlude, and I said to Chris earlier that, not that I wanted to sort of blow smoke up him, but we had a lot of bad left backs in the last decade, and Chris was the first one him and Ryan Haynes, I think, sort of offered different things, and it was quite an interesting battle to see who got first choice out of them. But Chris was the first one who came in for a long time who was just a solid left back, which we hadn't had. And we commented on here, as Joey said earlier, we sort of review the matches, and we have our favourites who, probably we shouldn't be, but we're a bit more lenient with than others. And it's natural nature, when you have 2 children, you'll notice that. But but you were one of those players that, not that we found excuses for, but we didn't we knew what you were about. We knew that you weren't playing at your best, and it wasn't.
No.
So there are other players we've had who just aren't very good, or there are other players who you just don't take a fancy to for whatever reason. You were a player that we liked because, as I said, we knew that you were a player who we could trust. We knew what we were getting, and for us, it was a case of it was a bit of a shame for us that you weren't at the level you were previously at.
Yeah, it was.
It must be odd for yourself as well.
Yeah, it was, because, like I said, I was loving my time and I was on a real high, and I felt like I was playing the best football of my career. And it was to get that injury that I did to set me back. I think I was out for nearly 13 months. So it's tough, and then you sort of you want to come back to the player you are, but you're not, and you then sort of change your game. And I felt it took me a while to adapt and sort of then change how my style of play is going to be, because I went from having that sort of bit of explosive pace and that sort of side where I could get forward quite a lot, and I've had to revert that. And I think that's what was my detrimental part of leaving the club, because Mark Robins then wanted someone who was up and down, I was touched on before, was constantly going forward, and that's what Ryan Haynes offered, and Sam McCullum, for example, who's doing a fine job at the moment. I think that's what Mark Robins was always looking for in a left back. So for me, I was in that season, the following season when we played in League Two, Jack Grimmer was always the one flying forward at right back, and I was more reserved in my position, where Mark Robins, he put me in games where he needed some solidarity and I need some defensives. That's probably why I played towards the back end of the season when the games got nitty and gritty, and I always found that part right. I need someone to knock this down and knuckle it up and give me a solid performance, and that's what I've always done, because that's the player I am. It was then Mark Robins wanting to go down a different avenue, and I touched on it before. I not want to hold grudges. I shook his hand, and we said, look, do you want to stick around? Do you want to stay? Do you want to stay the next season? So I was still under contract. But I said, look, I want to be playing football. I'm not one to be in and out. And I know you want to go down a different route. So let's just shake hands and be gents. And I'll go my separate way. And then we'll move forward and let you move forward with what you want to do. And I'll go forward with what I want to do.
So what was Robins like as a manager then?
Yeah, I got a lot of time from Mark Robins. I loved him as a manager. He was very similar to Mowbray. He was very stern, very forceful. And again, he was one who would simplify it, and he was, that season when we got promoted, he was 4-4-2, so what of like a tucked in left Jordan Shipley, and then it was, or sometimes a tucked in Bayless on the right. And touching it before when we were talking about formations, that was his how he wanted to play. And it was when you've got that sort of foundation of how you're going to play, and he sort of got his way around of working in and out of, right, this is what we're going to do, and that sort of side. And players then sort of know their roles and responsibilities, and you get the best out of them.
Do you know what? I had a constant, even in the season. I mean, I'm a miserable bastard, Chris, I'm afraid. But there was even in the season where we went up from League Two, I had a constant complaint about the fact that we looked. Obviously, this is a good thing. But defensively, we looked incredibly solid. And we have done ever since he took over. But I could never quite see in that season what his game plan was in terms of scoring. What did he give that team an identity? Or was it kind of just don't concede and we'll be fine?
This first part of the season, when I think I played the first 16, 17 games, it was a lot about being solid, right? That's how Mowbray was in a sense, but he had that going forward of, right, I know these lot are going to perform up front for me, so... Well, we didn't really have that.
He'd got a lot of mavericks, hadn't he, Mowbray? Where you could almost say, look, as long as we don't concede, there's enough.
Score,
yeah. Whereas,
that's right.
And I love Jordan Shipley, and obviously Tom Bayliss came in and did fabulously. But certainly that first half of the season, it seemed almost like, well, we've got to hope that McNulty gets a tap in that we don't know where we've really fashioned it from, or we've got to hope that Naison does whatever the hell he does. But I wonder how much he talks about a game plan attacking wise.
Yeah, with the signing of like Armour, when we signed Armstrong, this is probably a different one. When we signed Max, from I think it was Sutton, and as players you're thinking, right, he's our number 9. Yeah. What we're going to get out of him? Like, he's signing number 9 from Sutton. Right, is this because we're going into League Two, we're signing these sort of players? What's going to happen? And we got Mark McNulty, who had not been renowned to score 30-odd goals a season. So you do as players, you think, well, where are we going to score? And thankfully, Mark took a little while to get going, but when he did get going, he set the place on fire. And I think it wasn't really until him and Biamu were playing up front together where we probably got the best out of the team.
Yeah.
Because they complemented each other perfectly. And I think I don't know if you spoke to Mark, I think he might have said the same, where him and Biamu worked like an absolute dream, and it was, it seemed to come together, and it took a little while than what it did for us to score goals. But once it did settle down, I think that's where we got the best out of the team. It was that sort of side of Mark and Max playing together.
Right, we've taken
Is it difficult? Sorry, so I just ask one last question on. Is it odd? You obviously you're at Coventry City. You said earlier about sort of obviously people know who Coventry City are, and without being sort of, we were the biggest team in that division, without a doubt. Like we had the biggest ground, we were the biggest name, and you're going into it. So this is the lowest we've been in 50, 60 years. Mm-hmm. We've got to get out this first. We've got to get out of this first chance we've got. But also, you've got a lot of players there, and no disrespect to anyone who was playing at that level at that time. You had a lot of players there who probably had never played at somewhere like the Rico. Or could you get that sense from the opposition that coming to the Rico, playing in front of a relatively big crowd, was a big fillet to them? How did you sort of get over that sort of?
I think that this is probably the same in League One, where I think a lot of teams, it's even like the sort of Walsall's, the Gillinghams, you're playing a team like Coventry, it is bigger than them, so they always get that rise their sort of game to it. When you come to a team like Coventry, you're like playing at the Rico it was bouncing that sort of League One season. We had 20,000 odd. Teams always want to rise to the occasion and play better than you. So it was just, luckily for me, I had that experience already at the club. Like you said, touched on some players in that League Two season, basically at the start of the season, never really played any games for the club, or were new to that, playing for a club like Coventry. So for them, it might have been different, but for me, it was always, we are Coventry City. We've got to stand up for this, and we've got to be better than what the opposition are, and we've got to rise to the occasion more than them.
I want to take a step back because we've overlooked, one of the biggest days in the club's history. So we said before that we would take the relegation season as two parts. There's no need. I mean, there's probably a conversation to have in a pub about Russell Slade and some of that sort of stuff. But I'm going to respect your professional license here and maybe not go too deep into that. The other thing, obviously, is Wembley more than anything else. Firstly, a lot of people probably say that when they're a kid they would watch the FA Cup and dream of playing and scoring the FA Cup. The JPT, where did that sort of... I'll tell you where the background of this question is. All the way through that season, I didn't give a monkeys about that cup competition. And then when George Thomas scored, I was nearly in tears. Like, all of a sudden, like, it properly... I was like, oh, my God, I actually am invested in this. How much did you care about it up until the point that you got to Wembley? And then what did that look like?
Yeah, I did. I think I come back from injury, and I played half the game against Wickham in that cup. Yeah. And I got injured again. So for me, it was... I didn't play another game until the final. And I always felt in my career that competition.
Was that the first game? Did you come back for that game without having played a game before?
I played two sort of in and outs of games, but that was my first 90 minutes,
And you were drafted in the centre half, weren't you?
Yeah, I played right centre half, which I never played in my career as well.
Yeah, you were brilliant.
Really good, yeah.
So that was a bit of a crazy one to play right centre half in a cup final. You think when it's a cup final, you just want to play. You don't. I could have played in goal. If you said you played in goal, I'd be like, that's fine. Give me a pair of gloves, I'm in. But for that competition, you don't really. I think until probably the semi-final, where you think, we've got a chance to go into Wembley, because it is that carrot of Wembley. If it wasn't probably Wembley, I don't think everyone would literally give a toss. But because it's that thing of, right, you said everyone's dream to do play at Wembley and have that chance of playing in the cup final, regardless of what it is. Once it gets to probably the semi-final, you think we're on the edge now, and that's probably as a group where we took the most interest in it was probably the semi-final sort of stage.
How does the build-up to the day where you wake up, how did it compare with the JPT final and the playoff final?
For me, it was exactly, I always room with Ryan Haynes, so for me it was just as like any other game. It never really felt any different. It was always me and Hainesy wake up, do our same routine, breakfast, have a little walk, play a bit of PlayStation, that sort of side. So it was just, for me it was, I think the first one was a lot better than the second one. the first one because it is fresh and it's new and it's Coventry hadn't been there for a while and the build-up was to it. I think for us, it felt a lot bigger of a game, but then you've got a playoff final is a lot more important than it is for a cup final. But I just felt, I don't know, for some reason that cup final felt a lot bigger of an occasion than the playoff final did. I don't know why, but it just felt that way.
We'd had nothing up until that point.
Yeah,
we'd been so wildly starved.
Yeah, that's what I think it is. I thought it is because I lived in the area. I lived in Brinklow, which is in Coventry, and I knew a lot of Coventry fans. I'd socialise and that sort of side. I knew as I longer you're at a football club, you sort of learn more of the history and that sort of side. And on my phone was off the hook of people asking for tickets and this and that. I was like, Jesus, it felt more building up to it. It felt more of a bigger thing, and yeah, it was just to be part of that was special.
We've been to Wembley 4 times in our entire history, and you've been there twice. I mean, my daughter, who's 7, thinks we go to Wembley a lot. It's just like, we've been there 4 times.
Was going about 3 weeks before, and he'd been to Wembley twice in a year, and I was thinking, mate, don't get used to this.
I mean, because I said the first one was massive. Like, we went down, like, my youngest is now 5, so I think she was 2, but she slept through the first half. She slept through the goal. But it was the case of, we might never do this again. And the fact it was a year later, but it was that, and I think it was a bit of an odd game that one, but you sort of, the second one, the trip to Wembley the second time, I think, I don't know about, I assume from the other conversations the players were there, is the Notts County away game was where we won promotion.
Yeah.
But the Wembley, winning the Checkatrade, we did win that at Wembley. But the promotion, you've almost got the feeling that, that was a weird first half anyway. It must have been incredibly hot in that game against Exeter. I mean, it must have been very draining. But it was just a case of, we had that, we were in the same end we'd been the year before, we were in the same fan zone. We had quite a few of the same players.
The same for me. Everything just felt exactly the same, and it didn't feel, even though it is probably a bigger game to get promoted from the playoffs, it is probably a bigger game than winning, as I said, the Checkatrade, where it's a cup competition, but it's not renowned as a massive cup competition. But it just felt a bigger game, that Checkatrade final. And I don't know, because it was if it had been the other way around, maybe it'd been different. But for me, as you spoke about there, the Notts County game, that for me is my probably favourite game of my whole career. Amazing. I absolutely loved that game, and I think it was on telly the other day, and I watched it back, and it was.
Yes.
I don't know, but I don't know anything about that game. It was just, the whole thing about that was just an amazing game, and it was. So I've been to Wembley twice, and with Coventry, and that Notts County game has always stuck with me as being probably my favourite game I played in.
We've been between the three of us, we've been going to Cov games week in, week out for 20 years or whatever it is.
Yeah.
About 30.
I think, but of all of, even if I know we're only a small sample size, but all three of us would say that was our favourite game ever as a Cov fan, surely to God.
Yeah, it was from minute go. I think not because we scored early, but the whole build up to the game, driving to the game, all the fans were outside, and it felt like a proper game, and it was packed to the rafters. And then said we scored early, and it was electric from there on in. And as players, not as probably as fans, like, I looked at it on the telly the other day, and it was bouncing from probably minute 5, and it was like, crikey, no wonder it felt like a good game.
How much of it was kind of like things accidentally falling into place, and how much of it was kind of engineered? Because Tom and Mark, my mates, Tom Bayliss and fucking McNulty and Bayliss, talked about kind of it being a bit of a mixture. They talked about Michael Doyle being really instrumental in the build-up to it and sort of helping people along. But to what extent? To try and make that a bit of an easier question. To what extent did we all fall arse backwards into it, and to what extent was it all perfect planning and orchestration?
I think we always knew we got into that chance of being in the playoffs. We felt we had a right chance of getting promoted, and then we got on there the last day. But it probably should have been a bit sooner. Anyway, that last game of the season against Morecambe was just token, and we we knew what we had to do to get it over the line. And
it was wicked. Yeah, that's
one of the weirdest game I ever played in my career as well.
Yeah, we want to talk for about half an hour about that game, if that's all right, because that was.
What the hell was that game about?
I think everyone was overemphasising how good the Notts County game. Now that felt sweet, didn't it? A 0-0 draw against Malta. That's the sort of thing I'm telling my grandkids about. I was there.
Yeah.
Just you couldn't see it coming. That was the main thing. I couldn't believe it.
I completely forgot about that. What a game that was! That was a weird game. And yeah, then going into the Notts County game, I think that's when your experienced players like your Michael Dawes and we had Liam Kelly. That I think, as I've touched on before, with your solidarity, that's what you need. You need a foundation of having your two midfielders that are solid, your back's solid, and then you go from there. And then we had Martin McNulty and Bayamo who were firing at that sort of time, so we always knew we keep it tight, we'll score goals, and it's going to be. That's what our game plan was going into it, and it worked an absolute dream.
Tom Bayliss said as well that you really wanted to stick it to Notts County specifically. Is that how you felt?
Maybe because he's a bit younger than me, he might have felt that. I never really. That's not me. I knew Kevin Nolan coming up from Bolton sort of side. I knew he was the one who sort of guided me. He was the captain of Bolton that sort of time when I was coming through. So I got a lot of respect for Kevin, and it was on that sort of side. No, not for me personally.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
When you saw people like, as you're sort of getting towards the senior years of your career, when you see people like, obviously because Tom Bayliss came through in the League 2 season, and so did Jordan Shipley.
Yeah.
How quickly do you see players like, again, you work with Jacob Murphy, went to play in the Premier League. Obviously, Jack Stevens came for the Premier League, is now a first teamer. Do you spot them quite early and say that these guys have got the attitude, and all the technical ability? Like, how high can you see people like Jordan Shipley going?
Yeah, some players take a lot longer than some others do. Like, you've got people like Jordan who probably needs to be nurtured a lot longer than probably your James Malletsons, for example. When I first went into Coventry sort of side and I started training, James was one I like. You literally, your eyes glare over him, got the ball, you think, oh my God, what a player. But then sort of Tom Bayliss had that sort of thing about him as well, where when he started coming through, he'd get the ball and it would be like, right, something's going to happen. And that's what you need from your, like, especially with forward sort of players who're going to be trying to push on to go into a higher up football. That's what you need from them sort of players. And that's what Tom, when he first come onto the scene, he literally lit it up straight away. And maybe Jordan, for example, Jordan Shipley was one who took a lot longer. He sort of was in and out sort of Mowbray sort of side and never really got going until Mark Robbins took over, and he never really found a position where to play for the previous managers. I think then Mark found a role for him that suited him to the ground, and he kicked on massively, and then now he's growing and growing and growing, and like I said, you never know where that sort of side, as long as you're happy and you're in a sort of role where, similar to what I was under Mowbray, what he's under now probably with Mark, you know what you're going to be, you know what you can bring to the table, and that's what Jordan is doing right now. He steps up every game and does really well.
I want to talk about a couple of the post-Cov things you've done and then wrap up, because you've been very generous with your time, but we won't keep it too much longer. So, Bury, first of all, you were injured for a lot of that, I believe, were you?
Bury, no, I was fine with Bury. I signed for Bury. Yeah, I signed for Bury fit. I left. That was the season I left when we just got promoted with Coventry, and I left then, and I went and signed for Bury, and I was fully fit, and I played, I think I played nearly all the games that season when we got promoted.
What on earth is it like trying to deal with that situation at the end of that season? Yeah,
that was... Well, it was sort of February, sort of touched on it. I've done a full-on interview on... I think it's on YouTube if someone does want to watch it and find out all about it. But yeah, it was sort of in January, I think it was February sort of time when we got told, right, it sort of was out the blue where the new owner took over. We thought, right, okay, didn't really think anything of it. New owners come all the time. Fine, get on with it. I said before, I never really got involved with outer sides of football. And you asked me the question about with Coventry, for example, and I said I never really want to get up. My job is to play football. But when you stop getting paid, you do then think, right, well, I want to get involved now. What the hell's going on? And then it was sort of February time when they said, right, you're not getting paid now. We're not going to pay you. We were like, what? Yeah, I think we were second in the table at the time as well. You don't think a team at second in the table, especially you're going to get cut. They're going to cut the wages, and you're not going to get paid. And sort of the PFA stepped in and offered to pay us half our wages to the end of the season. And it was thinking then, right, well, I've got a little boy here, I've got a family to feed. My wife wasn't working. I was like, come on, what? This is not what I need, and not like what you think with football-wise. It was going so well, and you got off the field. It was an absolute mess, and thankfully PFA managed to contribute half our wages. That got me over the line to the end of the season, and it's still a complete mess right now with Barry. What is actually going to happen?
How do you manage to separate that sort of basically it's a work-life balance, because you're obviously on the pitch, things are going really well, the manager's getting the best out of you, you've got a really good team, you're winning lots of games, everyone must be really it must be a really enjoyable atmosphere to be in a team. And then, but you've also got this other thing where, am I going to get paid today? Or, can I pay my bill? How did the squad manage? Was that down to good management, or the manager just sort of managing to keep everyone focused?
I sort of priced before, in previously when people asked me, we had when you're all in the same boat, we're all actually like from the staff to the players. We sort of separated ourselves from the chairman and that sort of side, because they were the ones who weren't paying us. So we've separated. Right, we're going to be a separate group now. We're going to stick all this together because we're the ones not getting paid. So whilst like all the admin staff and the kit man and the ground staff, we got together as a group. Right, we've got this far as a group together. We've done all the nitty-gritty hard work. Let's get this football club over the line. Let's get this where all we can do, all thing we can handle is a Saturday afternoon, performing on Saturday afternoon. And it was tough as hell because, like you said, you're not getting paid. You don't know where your paycheck's coming. But thankfully, the PFA contributed some money that would then pay your bills. You didn't have to worry about covering your mortgage and all that sort of side. So you did have that bit of money to cover that, but you couldn't have then obviously expenses to save up and pay for other stuff. You just had to live under your means. And yeah, it was tough, but thankfully we had a great manager in Ryan Lowe, who did absolutely amazingly to keep that group together, and we had some good experienced pros as well who just kept everyone under the same thing, and we were all in the same fight. And so it was easier where we were second the table in everything's all right. At least everything was right on the pitch. We didn't have to worry about that as well. But yeah, it was a crazy sort of period in football where, and I'm not too sure how we did get over the line, because there was times nearly 3 weeks we didn't even train, and we were a team that second the table and we weren't even training. So it was completely crazy, and we sort of scrambled over the line, and thankfully we did.
It must have been a shit league.
It was the season after, like, Coventry sort of left, so it wasn't much different.
I'm only being rude for effect there as well. So it is just, in all seriousness, it's really testament and credit to the manager and the squad there, isn't it? That you must have had some real quality above the level of that league, but that you must have really knuckled down and stuck with it, because I think you could have really been forgiven to have just chucked it in the bin and thought, no, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, I think that would have been the easy option if we'd just chuck the towel in. Right, we're not playing, because we had that right to do that, because none of us were getting paid. So after 2 weeks, seeing your contract, you can then walk away for free and go and sign somewhere else. No one wanted to do that, but you're in your right to do it. And you can go and sign for another football club, pick up your wage, and move on, and you got no care in the world. But there's a lot of people say about players that they have no care and that they're just there for their money and that sort of side. But I think the lower down you go, you do find players that are at the end of the day, they love playing football, and that's especially in that sort of group we had. We were thankfully blessed with a lot of players that generally did love playing the game and wanted to just get a football club like Bury. In fact, we all felt part of it and wanted to get the club promoted.
You can see that as a fan, I think. You can see the players who, are just basically they'd play for the dog and duck, or they just want to play football. You can, I think the fans appreciate it. I mean, I suppose sort of probably an unanswerable question, but having got promoted with Cov and got promoted with Bury, and having shown in your time at Cov that you were a good League One player, does it sort of feel a bit odd then you obviously ended up at Stevenage and what was going on, the sort of the mess that was there? Yeah. Do you feel like you deserved another crack at League One?
Yeah, I had opportunities to go into League One after I left Coventry and after I left Bury, but they weren't when you sort of get older and you have financial means of where you need to look after your family, and so my wife wasn't working, was just a little boy, and financials do come into it. My wife's from Manchester. I met her when I was at Bolton, so that's why I ended up going to Bury. I wanted to settle down in the northwest. In the end, it's my plan at the end of the day in football, and I thought that would be it. And it didn't quite work out like that because I stopped getting paid in February. So, and then I moved back. So I had to move in the end. I had to move back down to where I still kept my house in Coventry. I've always enjoyed living around here, so I moved back there. It's Stevenage ones again. It was. I'm not saying now I play for the financials, but the financial is a massive thing.
Yeah.
Where I got offered, say for example, in the summer I got offered contracts by Accrington Stanley and teams like that in League One, where people sort of will vaguely know what teams like that offer, and it seems like in the league below offer a lot more money and they entice you in, and I got sold the chance at Stevenage again they finished seventh the season before. 1 point had the playoffs, and it was a chance for me to go and be promoted. It sort of worked out football wise. It felt good football wise, and it was good financial wise to go and do it. So that's why I did that one. That's why I did Bury as well.
That must have been a weird decision to make with Accrington, because presumably they wouldn't have been one of the higher payers, but in a part of the country that you'd have been really keen to live in.
Yeah,
you must keep thinking to yourself, why can the two just not match up just for a change?
Exactly, yeah. If I could have moved my Stevenage contract back in the Stanley, I'd have been like, yeah, let's do this, let's sign. But yeah, I think my wife wasn't too happy when I said, right, yeah, we're moving to Stevenage, love. She's like, what? Where the hell's that? And I was like, yeah, it's North London. So yeah, it was. But that's football. When you get older, you sort of then your career is not forever. You do have to then think about your family and then that sort of side, and you don't play for the money, but you play for what is best fit financial and football wise, and they both have to come together.
Yeah.
When you're young, you can pick just football wise, and it's easier that sort of way. But when you get, so I'm 29 now, you do have to start thinking about where's my career going to go at the end, and you don't want to be moving around too much and that sort of side.
I just don't think fans take it into consideration at all what a phenomenal pain in the arse that must be all the way through your career, that you're constantly wondering where you're going to live and how you're going to get. People just assume that footballers are sort of just stacking up loads of money and making the decisions themselves, but it's just not at all how it works by the sound of it. It just sounds so stressful.
Like 6 times in 5 years I think I've moved house, so it's every year. So it's just every
15. You want to do what I do, Chris. That's what you want to do.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have the adulation. I suppose that's the difference, yeah. No one cares about me. But well, I just think maybe Joey does, but
nah.
And obviously now you find yourself back at, I suppose, your spiritual home at Forest Green. That must be must have been quite a nice journey to sort of return to a club that you started out at in terms of playing football, and can help them on their progression, hopefully to play us, not play us next season because we're going up.
Yeah, you're moving up there.
Yeah,
there was a point that sort of come around where it was literally the last day of the transfer window at Stevenage. Obviously, I had teams from Scotland and here, there, and everywhere that wanted to sign me, but I was like, right, I've got a family that I live in Coventry. I didn't want to move too far, and Forest Green is not too far away from me, and it was one where I knew the club, and it was one I could do quite quickly, knowing that I know where I'm going. Especially the last day of a transfer window, you don't want to be going to a club where you have no idea where you're going, and I didn't want to stay at Stevenage much longer. I wasn't enjoying myself, wasn't going how I thought it would go, and I was still playing reasonably good football, and I didn't want to be my career to put out that like it did, and I could have ended up in non-league, and I didn't want to go down that path, especially as a 29-year-old when I think I'm doing quite well. With back-to-back promotions from that out of the division, I wanted to go to a side that was at least with a chance of going out of the division, and said Forest Green got the chance now of getting into League One. I want to be part of that, and that's why I signed there.
Right, let's start wrapping things up then. So some more general questions, generally speaking. Firstly, rooming with Ryan Haynes. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird?
In what? Because we both play the same position?
Yeah. Didn't you just you must have, surely when he was playing, you must have been like, oh, well done, mate. You fucking
it was, because it was Mark Robbins was one, he sort of named his team quite early, so you knew what especially on a Friday night, we knew who was playing. It was always had that sort of joke with each other of like, right, I'm going to sleep in a sleeping tablet so don't wake up in the morning and all that sort of stuff. Put some things in your drink. But I think me and Hainsey clicked off because Hainsey wasn't really playing he was sort of, I think he played at the start when that season he sort of then peeled out, and then as I come in, he was then it was me and him then fighting for that position. I don't know, me and Hainsey just clicked off from the start and we got on really well. Sort of people you get on well with and you don't with from get going. Me and Hainsey clicked and we always had a fantastic relationship, and he's still one of my best friends now in football.
Would he have played on the wing?
People always said this, was he a winger, but I felt like when he had that chance of going forward, he was probably always better with the ball, with the game in front of him. And
yeah, maybe
when you get higher up, the games, you sort of got your back to goal and you're playing with your back to it. And I think Hainsey won't mind me saying he's not really a physical player, is he? So he's got a lot of pace, and I think when the game's in front of him, and I think in the wing back role, what he's playing for now at Newport suits him down to the ground, because I think he's always more of a wing back than a full back. When you get to left back and sort of in certain games where you get pinned back a bit, that's where I think sometimes he might have found it tough, because it's more of a defensive sort of game, and you got to win headers at the back stick and that sort of stuff. You're playing, especially in League Two, you're playing against big physical players. But Hainsey's now playing in a sort of a wing back role, which is similar to what Coventry are playing now, and I think that is sort of not necessarily a winger, more of like a wing back.
In terms of your own position, now you have to forgive me that I haven't watched a great deal of Bury, Stevenage or whatever games. Are you largely playing at left back now?
No, I'm playing in the middle of a three now.
Okay. In the middle of the three as well?
Yeah, so like this role what Carl McFadden plays for Coventry.
Where do you prefer?
I preferred centre half. I played centre. When I went to Bury, they played a back three, and I played left of a back three, which is what Don plays. And then I went to Stevenage and I started off playing left back, and then we moved again to a three, and I played left of a three or middle of a three, and then I've gone to Forest Green and I'm playing middle of a three. Because when I'm getting older now, it is more. I enjoy playing centre half, and I think someone. I think Neil asked me. One of you asked me that was where I wanted to play when I was younger. And I think if I stuck at centre half, I probably would have been a good centre half, let alone a left back. I've always enjoyed playing centre half.
Because I think I sent this to you when I was messaging you before you came on, but that Paul's got a better memory than me. But the first time I think we saw you at centre back was you and Haynes both played at centre back. And we were shitting ourselves because just less for you, but for Ryan Haynes, you just thought, what on earth is going to happen here? And then you were brilliant, both of you, that day. And actually,
Jordan Turnbull played centre half. It was me and Jordan who played that cup final.
So the cup final was you two, together. And again, that was the best he played in a Cov shirt with 100%. He had a great game that game. But actually, the longer that you played there, the more that it seemed like you'd played there your whole career.
Yeah. I think Mowbray, like when I can't remember who got injured. I think we lost Ben Turner and Redder.
Every centre back got injured that season, didn't they?
Yeah, I think Mowbray asked me the question and said, "Do you want to go into centre half? Because I think you'll do well there." And because I was doing so well at left back, I didn't really want to think of I'll change to play centre half and it won't go well. And then they bring in a left back, and I think, I'm out of the team now. So I was just happy where I was, and maybe if I had made that choice then of playing I want to play centre half, you never know where that could have gone, because I think I am more of a, especially now, I'm definitely more of a centre half than a left back.
Then the final couple of things. One, there's the obvious stuff, going to Wembley, playing under Russell Slade, but the outside of the really big obvious stuff, what are your favourite memories of your time at Cov?
Favourite memories? Well, that season, especially that 15-16, the start of that season up to January was electric. I speak about that season every time I probably bump into a Coventry fan or I bump into players I played with that season. It is always probably talk about is that season. It is a lot of good to talk about, but it's a lot of disappointment. But I tried to think of the positive and what a good group it was, and what a set of team and what fortunate I was to play in such a good team. And then I've touched on that. My favourite game was that Notts County game. Bury 6-0 was a great game to be part of, and then obviously touching, we've got the two cup finals as well, which is every footballer's dream to go to a final at Wembley and win them. Obviously to play, let alone win them. So I was very fortunate to go to 2 finals and win them as well.
And then finally from me, and there may well be Paul and Neil want to chip in with one or two last ones.
Yeah.
Who I want you to put together your 5-a-side team of your Cov teammates. So you can pick yourself, or you can leave yourself out. It's completely up to
you. So in goal, I will go Burgee, and then in defence, I will go Jordan Willis and Ben Turner.
Yep.
It's hard not to go for Ben Turner, isn't it? We will
just because I love the play.
Even
then, I only played about 5 or 6 games. It wasn't. It was dreadful. We got injured. I think if he had stayed fit,
that would have made an unbelievable.
Yeah, massive difference. Yeah, Ben was a great player.
10 years ago, I was 30, and for my 30th birthday present, Joey bought me a T-shirt that said "Well done, Ben Turner."
Yeah, just because of the amount of times during a game where you just go, "Oh, well done, Ben Turner."
I mean, we fell instantly in love with him. Yeah, and you just, again, sort of, as Joey alluded to earlier, we know one of the ground staff, and we chat with him every now and again, players.
Yeah.
He talked about, absolutely lovely players and people, and from the outside, you sort of sometimes don't really get that. Like, I think as a fan base, every Cov fan knows that Maxim Biamu is just a wonderful human being.
Yeah.
Most of us have never met him or had a conversation. We all know that if we needed, we had coronavirus, Max would come up here and drive and bring us fresh food. But with Ben Turner, you just got the feeling he's just no reason for it. You just got the feeling that he's just a nice guy. And
a big lovable guy. Yeah, that's what he was. He was always that smile on the face, always happy, always bubbly, and one of them people that was just a joy to be a teammate with. And said he was a great player as well, which is always a big bonus. And he was, I love playing next. I played next to him as well. So for me, as a young sort of player, I was at my first season in a sort of a big sort of side, a League One sort of team, and I learned so much from Ben. So I'm very grateful for that as well.
So we've got Lee Burge, Jordan Willis, Ben Turner.
So I've got 2 more.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't. James or Flecky? Tough.
That's interesting that's still the decision there. With obviously people are talking about James Maddison being fucking 100 million quid or whatever, but you'd say that's a toss up between the two. I might allow you to have both of them.
Yeah, but then I haven't got a striker.
Oh no! And you can start. We'll make it 6-a-side for your benefit.
6-a-side.
We
play 6-a-side.
I can't. Yeah, for them two, I can't, because I said Flecky was instrumental in that team we had. He was the clog. He was everything. He was. I said it off the pitch as well. He was a great lad. He helped that team massively as well. And then you've got James, who was coming through, who was probably the best player I've ever seen and ever trained with. And he did stuff that with the ball that was unbelievable. And it was to experience that as well as a player coming through, you get to be part of someone's career from a young age. It was great to be part of. So it was great to see James come through and be what he's become.
Then presumably Latif up front.
Who was the other one we had from West Brom? Was it West Brom? What's his name? The striker we had.
Andre Wright.
Andre Wright, that's the one I was looking for. I think he was
classic. He was the one that got really aggrieved when we were 4-0 down at Oxford that time.
Jesus Christ, he was poor. Yeah.
I've got a list of players I could ask, but yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what. I touched on the recruitment from Mowbray sort of side. I don't know what happened there. I don't know who was bringing in them sort of players. Bloody hell.
Lewis Page was another great laugh. Yeah.
I think you've got about a big long list you can go through.
Right. Well, yeah.
And then the striker, I think I can't believe that Armstrong from that season. He was, even though I had McNulty who scored all them goals, just because it was a high division, I'd probably go with Armour.
I'm gonna say I reckon your team pisses all over McNulty's team just based on the names that we got. I still can't tell you half the players that you put in that team. They're interesting selections, but that sounds like a solid team to me.
And even then, I'm leaving out Joe Cole, but I don't even know where I could fit him in. I can't play 3 midfielders, can I?
No, that's not. I think McNulty would be hard pressed to argue, for as brilliant as he was, is that Armstrong's he scored 4 goals in his first 2 games, 1 from the halfway line.
It
was quite a start.
Yeah, it was like we named it like Mini Shearer, and it was just like, what the hell we signed there? I was a Newcastle fan as well. I'm a Newcastle fan. For me, it was like, right, can you get back to Newcastle and do this, please?
I'm surprised he hasn't. He wasn't given a chance at this point. Yeah, because I mean, obviously, he's at Blackburn. I sort of understand he's playing because Mowbray likes playing him on the wing towards the end of his career, which I never quite understood. But because for me, he was always like he was a natural striker, like absolute natural.
Yeah.
If you'd have put him in this Cov team, he'd have
scored 50 goals. Yeah.
He'd have just absolutely destroyed it. And because he was always he was alive by the end of the shoulder, just in a great sort of positional sense. Like, he must have been quite difficult to train against, because for someone so small, he seems to have a really good sense of his own strength and body.
Yeah, his legs were massive as well. He was built like a man. He was. Yeah, he was only 18 when he first come, and his legs were huge, and he was like a little pocket rocket. He was electric his turn of pace was gone. So you couldn't, especially when you mark him in training, you knew you had to sort of grab hold of him and not let him move, because if he'd go, he was gone. that was for a lot of them as well. When I was training against, obviously you got Jacob and Ryan Kent, for example, it was. Right, you're not running past me because I know I'm not going to be able to catch up with you. So I'm grabbing hold of you from the get-go and not running.
I
think it was just Mowbray sort of wanted to. He always said about Aguero with him. He was always like Aguero, like go much Aguero, and he sort of then dropped him down into I think he played fortunately up front and dropped Armour into that sort of like 10 role, and then went out wide. And I don't know, because he was young, he didn't want to play him down the middle, but. That's where we got the best out of him, especially in the first games. First part of the season, he was, would you say, number 9, for example. He was leading the line, and he was doing it absolutely brilliantly.
Again, sort of from a Langton point of view, you put your best players in their best position, and then if you have another position, you put someone in who can do a job there, but you don't weaken your we don't want to go into it, but Mowbray's sort of fascination with Fortune drove me in particular to absolute distraction.
Yeah, I think it was one where he worked on him before, and he maybe then leaned towards the side, right, it's getting towards the winter period, I want a big physical striker and then hold the ball up and that sort of side, but it just wasn't us. That's not what we were. And it was, I've said our game plan and our identity, for example. I've always said about when I've gone to clubs, you need to have an identity of what you are, and everyone can then buy into it, and you sort of you knew what we were about. And that first part of the season, that's what we were. We were vibrant, electric, youthful, and it was just amazing to be part of it, amazing to watch. And it just got taken away, and then you could see that it was never going to be that team that we had at the start of the season, what we had at the back end, and it was never going to be successful.
Right, Paul, Neil, any final thoughts before we let this man go?
I just want to thank you, Chris, for allowing us to exploit the fact that you can't tell us that you're busy, because obviously you can't. So thank you for allowing us to take up so much of your time. It's been
no problem.
Amazing, especially the Mowbray stuff. I mean, that's one of the most fascinating sort of periods of time that we've had in the last sort of time as a Cov fan. So you being able to kind of talk to that has been brilliant for us. Thanks so much.
No problem.
Paul?
From my point of view, you obviously, anyone who plays twice at Wembley on a winning team sort of cements himself as legendary status. But I said, for me, from the first time, one of the first times we saw you, it was just a case of, this is the sort of guy I can get behind. He's not, no offence, he's not overly flashy, but I know what I'm getting. And we could list probably about 8 left backs off the top of our head who were just awful. And then I just feel like one of the things for you, obviously joined, or you played in some really interesting seasons, with the Mowbray season, with the relegation season and everything that was going on, both on the pitch and at times off the pitch, with protests, people throwing pigs onto the pitch. It must have been slightly surreal.
Yeah.
And then obviously and then obviously the return. And the return to the return to League One. And I think thanks for everything. we've had a lot of players who come through the club, especially over the last decade. I mean, we once did a list of players who played with Mickey Doyle, and it was longer than the list of numbers who played with Ryan Giggs, and it's like 16-year career at Man United. It's just the amount
That's
of
actually true, isn't it?
Yeah, it's phenomenal. But you were just one of those players who I don't think I find many Cov fans who don't just have that respect for you, which is, again, it's just a bit odd because we're a fickle, miserable bunch. So just thanks. I mean, it was just, and it's been an absolute pleasure for the last 2 hours because I feel like we've all learnt something and sort of really enjoyed your company. So cheers, thank you very much.
No problem, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to echo most of that. It's funny because when you were kind enough to agree to come on, is obviously I sort of refreshed myself over the sort of the period of time that you were with us for, and actually, there's probably not many players. It's probably only you and Jordan Willis, maybe Lee Burge, that would be equipped to tell the story of kind of that period of the lowest low up to the highest high in a weird way. And actually, the only reason you're able to is because you gave such a brilliant account of yourself all the way through it. So even when we were shit, you weren't. And there's not many players who can come out of that and say that. And actually, when we think about all of our best moments in the last 5 years or so, you were there. And I think you will be remembered for a very long, long time in Cov fans' memory. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That's nice because it's. Well, I still live in the city now. My boy was born in the city, and it's a club that means a lot to me. And every time I stepped on that pitch, I always give my absolute all. And I never thought I would ever leave. It was a sort of club when I sort of signed, I thought some clubs you get that feeling and some clubs you don't. And as soon as I signed, I absolutely loved it. And I still do now. I still love the club a lot. And it means a lot to me because it was, when you win something with a football club, it means more. And to all the boys, I still talk to all that sort of group a lot. And I've still got a big group chat with, I think, George Thomas, James Madison, Jordan Willis, Ryan Haynes, and we talk every single day about our times at the club, and it does mean a lot. And when you go on a team when you play for a team like Coventry, it's a massive thing for a player, and it always means a lot to me.
That's brilliant. Right, okay, I think we're all done then. So thank you, Paul.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
Thank you, Neil.
Thanks, boys.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Cheers. Thank you.